So,
Can I actually start by saying something?
yes.
Something that I've noticed, obviously, everything that uh I'm like, let's say, directly exposed to, I first see on social media. So social media has really become like a platform for, activism, and especially online because of lockdown and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think it's that thing of where people, you never really know if people are, reposting or, spreading awareness because they truly are, against, whatever they're speaking out against, or whether it's just for like, oh, okay, since everyone else is doing it, let me also do it. So it's like, the
Being woke.
like the motive is kind of clouded, and it's like my one friend was telling me that when he asked, he's a guy, when he asked his guy friends to go to the protest, the anti GBV protest with him, then they were surprised that he was even going, and it was like, what, and it just shows you that it's like you can all like repost things and you can say that you're against it, but when you actually have like the opportunity to actually take action against it, it's made like it's a completely different chat.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's like a sad reality that I've kind of noticed, that although it's really good that these conversations are going across all platforms, it's kind of just showed me how the motive, the right motive, isn't always there, and people still don't always take action where action is available.
Yeah,
That's just what I've noticed.
that is true. And for not because of those guys' reason, but just for my reason with regards to the march, why I wouldn't have gone was because there wasn't any outcome to it. Like they were just marching, but like not marching to, like normally when we do marches, it's a march to the president's office or a
Yeah, like
march to Soren's
yeah,
to
the
change something, or a march with a letter to say we need these type of changes to happen. But there wasn't
yeah,
really a march that, it wasn't really like a purpose for the march. It was just a march against gender-based violence. And then it didn't really make sense for us to do the march because we were not delivering a solution, basically. We were just marching. So I feel like the way we should march, the way we should take action is if we bring out a solution to these issues instead of just doing a march or just talking about it. But let us make the conversation be more solution based, if you get what I mean. And I think we need to now like look at ways in which we can change the whole system, and look at ways in which we can make the conversation even better.
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, but I do understand your point, and it's like a lot of people are there to be woke, basically, where they
Yeah,
put it up on social media and stuff like that. And like for me, it's just I'm reminded, like about, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, my little sister sent me an IMI or IMIE number of her phone, and she was like, "Bro, if ever I disappear, here's my IMIE number," and that like hit me hard,
mm,
like boom, wow, she
mm.
actually is concerned about
She knows.
this, and she needs to know that there's someone that's always going to protect her, type of thing. And my mind started like going around, and now I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How can I protect her? She's way there in Witbank, and I'm like here, and I'm now thinking, how do I then protect her? How do I be that person who's there for her, especially in this time? What can I do? And it really hit me hard at that point, which is why I feel like my conversation as well needs to change. Even if I'm with the guys, we need to speak things that are going to bring forth a positive mindset, where we can protect women, where we can talk about how we can help women, to be protected. and these are ways we need to look into that. And for you as ladies can actually help us as well. Think about these things. Help us to look at what solutions we can bring to the table. So maybe we can say our first question can be, what solutions can we bring to the table in an instant? Like, for example, I actually asked my friend if I could use her as an example. She basically grew up with this guy, and this guy was like a father to her. And this guy started abusing her sexually, at a very young age, but she saw it as a normal thing. And when she spoke to others, it was like, no, it's a lie type of thing. So she saw that person as a person that was there to protect her. And then it so happened that they were busy having all this, having this thing continuing to happen each and every day, over and over again. And basically she then understood that actually she was being raped. And everyone else was looking at her as like, no, she's mad. This guy has been taking care of you since you were young. He can't do that. There's no possibility. And there is a possibility. A guy, I remember about a few years ago, I did a gender-based violence workshop with Soul City. And there were stories like a kid can have an uncle who will stay for like 10 years of that child's life, loving and everything, up until the point where the uncle rapes that child, and that child sees it as it's a normal thing, because no, he is actually loving me, and yet he's not loving you. So what solutions can we bring up with an instance like that, with a situation like that? Anyone can share their thoughts.
Well, my one is not like, I don't have a great idea, but I love that, just this idea that we're already starting to speak about it, like within the youth groups, but also as a church and as a society. Because for one of my studies, we were talking about death, but for that, they were talking about the instance of how if we start talking about more church, therefore, like when a death, for example, happens, people are able to be more open and come and actually ask for help when they need it. So just in the sense of the based violence, if we actually create this community of openness, they don't feel like they have to keep to themselves, like it's an individual private matter, if that makes sense. Because I think, like, especially on this topic, you need like a lot of support, because your whole world is going to change if you decide to speak up against it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think in that aspect, like a community, like one that you can truly rely on and go to for support and actual, like real good, like advice, if that makes sense, is like really needed. Because yeah, you don't have the wrong people that's like tell you to rather just stay it out, if that makes sense, and not speak up against it. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think since now we've, thankfully reached that point where people speak up about it like more, because I mean, it would be ignorant to say that this is like a new problem in our society, because it's been going on for a really long time, and it has, manifested, and it's gotten worse and worse. And now speaking up against it is something that happens a lot more frequently than it used to, because of the awareness of it. And I think also like the helplines and the different foundations and things that do exist also help create that environment that Laura was talking about, that, even if it's not, let's say, going and telling your family members or, your aunts or your mother, then you can, go to places that have, recently been developed that will actually help, that specific problem.
Yeah. Hi, TK.
Hello.
How are you, buddy? So we had already just started the conversation. saying that, we have scenarios of where you find that a child has a man that they look up to, and this man maybe could be the uncle, and being the uncle, it can so happen that for 10 years of this girl's life, she would have seen the uncle as a figure that loves, a figure that's protecting her and all that. And just after the 10 years, he rapes her, and she sees it as a normal thing because, no, my uncle has always loved me, and this is not rape. This is him showing me love. How can we find a solution to break that that kind of thought, as as men as well, and as women?
Okay, first up, just like that. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I didn't even greet. Sorry for my rudeness. Shoo, Elvis. Well, I think with time, and I'm going to make it more personal for me. I think I got to learn that our so-called heroes have a dark side that we do not know.
Mm.
And the fact that we have put them on a pedestal makes it hard for ourselves to believe that that person that we look up to can do anything bad or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do we do about it? It's a very tough question. Tough in a sense because I sit here as a 26-year-old and I still admire some people, and I know their past and I know the things that they have done, but it's hard for me to reconcile the bad things that they have done and the good things that they always portray to me. And so I think the only way that we could burst that bubble is that we be honest in terms of in fact, let me base my submission on this. Someone said a person can be very good to you and be a devil to somebody else. And so the fact that that person is good to me does not mean that they are a good person. And so when we burst that bubble, we burst it for everyone to know that this person has a good and a bad side. And it depends on what side they want to show to you. And so I honestly do not really know from where I'm standing what we can really do about it, besides talking about it, besides exposing that side of a person. We cannot, because there are families at this moment, Elvis, that are sitting in meetings because an uncle raped a child, and the entire family cannot believe that, because this uncle has been seen as the breadwinner. He has taken kids to school. He has built homes for the family, and nobody can actually picture that person doing that bad thing in a sense. So it's the only thing we could do is expose them, but I don't think that is enough. And that's my submission.
Dimple, would you like to say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, this, yeah, it's a very, very difficult thing to move around. But looking forward as to how can we make it, how can we be better, how can we do things better? I think firstly, education. Education, I think, is very much key. Start teaching kids as early as primary school, what is right and what's not right. We did, what do they call it, not behavioral course, child protection.
Yeah.
Yes,
What's
yes.
the thing? Yeah, something child protection. I forgot the name now. But basically, they teach kids what is right and what is not. What are your safe spaces on your body? What is the no-nos on your body in a sense? So teaching kids those vital basics, what is right and what is not right, starting from there. But not only there, but even older people,
Yes.
I think a lot of women stay in situations because they're not educated as to how can we get help, where can we go, where are the safe spaces. We hear about the helplines and all that, but where in our communities can we actually go when something like this happens, where we know that no matter what, we will be safe if we go there, somewhere to run to, so creating environments like that, like they said earlier, and educating people. What's right, what's not right, where can we get help? Is there help in our actual community? Not me having to drive an hour away just to get help, but within where I am, can I get help? So yeah, for me, that's vital.
Yes. TK, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just remember when Dimpa speaks, I just remembered something quickly. And that is when we were in primary school and then we were in pre-primary school, we were taught to be cautious of strangers, to not, those safety tips, not take a sweet from a stranger, to not go to a stranger. And in a sense, I've realized this. My niece is being taught the same thing that we have been taught whilst I was in pre-primary school and grade 1 and grade 2. But the sense is we have not brought it home into the household, in terms of teaching a child, if something happens to you whilst you're at home and your uncle touches you this way, or your brother touches you this way, you speak about it. And so we have not taught that. We still judge danger from outside and not from inside. And statistics at the moment are showing us that we're finding GBV basically at home and not outside, in most cases.
Yes, yes. And then Noma, you have your hand raised.
Yep, my hand is up. I was about to ask how to raise your hand, but then I figured it out at least. Is
Please
it lower
tell
now?
me. I also don't know where it is.
Okay, I raised my hand to say that, like, I think what makes the dismantling GBV so difficult is the fact that it's like a fight against people's mentality. It needs to be a complete change of mindset. Like, it's not like a conventional war where you can see the enemy, shoot them if you want to, and then all your problems are solved. It's like a generational, chain of how we think. And like, yes, we can point out that, it's in the patriarchy or it's wherever. And the TK brought up the good points about how it's also in our own homes, and how the school would teach us how to deal with it outside but not inside. And it's yeah, it's just difficult because it's in places where, like, you would never question authority. It's so it needs to be like a complete shift of mindset. And there was some survey that was done in 2007 already that said 60% of both boys and girls think it's okay to force sexual interaction, because you could be whether I don't know, guys' testosterone levels or what, sexual
drive.
Yeah.
Sexual drive, yes, that's the word, is higher. So it's yeah.
Like, speaking about sexual drive, I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine. I had the video and everything. We're talking about sex drive, and another friend of mine saw the video and said, that I think the problem is we've kind of we've sugar-coated words where, sex drive is actually lust. And, the way he put it out, then I actually thought about it and I was like, okay, it seems like, because if we really look at it, during the time when I was young, there was no term as sex drive. It was lust, basically. And I think we need to stop sugarcoating things and start saying things as they are, because the other problem is the more we sugarcoat and hide things, is the more young people will not understand. And when they don't understand, they'll look at their history and think, oh, but this was actually how things were. And this is how I grew up, and this is how things are supposed to be, And then it comes to when Dimpo spoke about the safe spaces and having that safe space, and you touched on it, Noma, in the sense of that, where do we go in a situation like that? Because you go to the police. The police first question is, what did you do for him to do that to you? And you think, where do you get protection from then? If the police are not going to protect you, if you go to the hospital, maybe you might just get someone who might help you, or at the clinic. But before that, someone will stigmatize you and say, oh, why were you with him? They'll start asking you all those questions instead of helping you out to protect you. And the worst part is that, firstly, police are there to serve and protect, but they're going to condemn you before they serve you and protect you.
Yeah,
the nurses are supposed to empathize with you as a woman, but some will first judge you and say, oh yeah, they have this term "velebel senzan," meaning what were you doing there, type of thing. And it does happen. It's how people are. So I think we kind of need to go back to that culture of the village. The village is the one that brings up the child. If other parents see a child in trouble, they need to act according to it, because we've gotten to this culture where it's even my neighbors can't tell me what to do or how to do things. So if I'm doing something wrong, my neighbors will just leave me and say, oh, it's so and so's child. Let's just leave it like that.
Yeah, it's not my business.
Yes, but during my time when I was growing up, it was like, no, so and so child, what are you doing there? Why are you doing that? They already ask you those questions. Why are you hanging around at the corner? You're supposed to be going home now. It's too late for you to be here. Who is that girl you're talking to? Who's that man that you're talking to? Do you know him? They used to ask those questions, and I used to be scared of these people saying, oh wow, my neighbor saw me doing this. I can't do this, because the whole community is the one that helps to bring up a child. But now it's no longer the same. It's more of, you can't tell me what to do. I've got my rights. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with rights, but there's something wrong with the way they're interpreted to us. And Lara, you wanted to say something.
Oh, yes. So for like a good representation, like a visual representation of gender-based violence, there's this movie, it's called Akas Anna. I think that's showing this the right way. But I think it is age restriction 18, and I do recommend that you listen to that and adhere to the age restriction for that, because it like truly shakes you to the core. It pretty much, it just shows like the actual like negative effects of gender-based violence. And like how this one girl pretty much, she wanted to stand up against what her stepfather was doing to her. And I think at the day, like, people tried to keep her quiet, and then her younger sister also suffered from that because they didn't want to let the older sister like stand up for that, if that makes sense. So it just showed like this whole trickle effect. Don't stand up now, it's going to continue for the next people to face it.
And that's the thing. I think media needs to now change the narrative as well. You know, I could look at a lot of movies. I've seen like the trailers to some of the Netflix movies that they have, and I'm thinking, oh wow, is this the type of movies that you guys have now? You know, and they keep promoting these things. You know, you look at movies like 50 Shades, and you're thinking, well, what the hell is that? You know, and they're actually big movies. And then you start wondering, why is the media doing such? And yet we're trying to help with different scenarios. I think the other thing that we need to do is it needs to be spoken to the government as well, to say, look, media needs to speak about these things, but if we're going to show movies that are showing us that are promoting these things, how then do you expect media to speak about these things and kind of like, you know, remove this scourge that we have, you know? Yes.
It's actually really evident in the, sorry, my hand wasn't up. Can I talk? Sorry. It's really evident in the media. Like, I had this conversation with my friends the other day about how it just like it glorifies, you know, the whole, you know, be submissive, and, you know, men need to be dominant and like and even I remember in English when we were doing visual literacy and stuff, like with advertisements, and they said that a technique is how sex sells. So you it's like, you know, when, like, I know, with like red lipstick or whatever, it's just like they play on, you know, the fact that, you know, people are just like, I don't know, compliant. They like you know, that stuff. So the media actually uses it, and sure, it's, you know, for them to entice people to buy whatever they're selling, but it's like they seldom think of the side effects that has on how people think, and, you know, what's normalized in our minds. So yeah, the media does play a role.
Yes. TK, you want to say something?
I think media has a vital role to play in terms of educating the public on what is expected of men and women, the entire nation. But the thing is, I believe that the media, in terms of media, people who write scripts, who are producers and or whatever, are people from the community, from the public. And so you can't expect someone to write about something that they don't believe in or they do not understand in. And so it draws back to, what do we teach our children and young people, you know? And I think that's where we will grab this. If, for instance, I've been thinking now, not the attention, I want the proper English word, the emphasis that we give on girl child, in terms of, this is the time for a girl child to dismantle patriarchy, to take their place in the world, you know, to be independent and all of that. That's going against what patriarchy stands for. But have we taught young boys how to react to that growth of movement? You know, we are going to find more and more young men not finding jobs, for an example, and them dating someone who has a job. How do we therefore say to that young man, there is nothing wrong with your relationship? It is not taboo that you're being helped or provided by your spouse or your partner. Because when, for instance, now if you go on social media, we can easily say men are providers. You'll see posts where a woman will say, "Now I want a man that can provide, that can that can take me to Dubai, that can all of those nice things." And these are portray what are traits of a man. And so, as for example, I'll use Lara as an example. She'll have her traits, this is what the standards that I have, that I want from a man, and he must work, he must, afford to take me to Dubai. And if he can't, he's not man enough for me.
Yes.
Now, when a young man hears that if I can't take a woman to Dubai, if I can't afford the lifestyle that she wants, I'm not a man enough. That instills anger into that man. That goes against his upbringing, because he was taught that he provides, and a person that provides has the last word, and particularly in African culture and families. If you're the provider, the last word remains with you. So if I say to you, we are eating KFC today, as a person that buys KFC, we are eating KFC. I don't care what your cravings are. I who buy KFC, we are going to eat KFC. Now, we need to, that's my passion at this moment. I'm working very hard in producing young boys, young men of tomorrow and today, who are going to go against the grain of men being that strong, being that providers, being, muscular, fragile. In fact, I use fragile, having that fragile, muscular pose to them. And so that's where we need to honestly put our efforts in. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Yeah, I think we need to work a lot on bringing up young boys, young men of today who understands the lifestyle that we're living today.
Yes, thank you, Lara.
Awesome. So like with regards, sorry, yes.
Continue.
Oh, sorry. So with regards to how Dimple said, like we need to educate the youth and everyone pretty much. I think there also has to be this thing of taking on education for ourselves, for actually like when we see someone and we like sort of pick up that gender-based violence might be happening, and we're like sort of scared of the discomfort of like conversation, because maybe it doesn't happen, but now we've made this discomfort between the relationship. I think we actually need to like push ourselves out of this comfort zone of where we are, so we can actually help someone. Because recently, well, before COVID, I knew this person, but I didn't know her well. And I remember she canceled on doing something with us because she said that her husband was physically abusing her. And I felt like from where I was, I didn't know her well enough. I didn't know her background, like to step in, if that makes sense. But like looking at it, it's like I kick myself like every day. Well, when I think about it, I kick myself for not actually like asking her or trying to like make a plan or make her aware of possible places where she could go. So yeah, I think we need to take that upon ourselves to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And then my other point was for gender-based violence. Any gender-based violence, no matter how small it is still gender-based violence. Because I think a lot of the times, even like that mindset of bullying, people don't stand up because they compare themselves to other people's situations, if that makes sense. And they're like, no, it's not as bad as so-and-so's. But yeah, I think people should still stand up with regardless of how like severe it is, because it's still violence at the end of the day.
And another thing that I actually looking at it in the sense of that, you will find in some families they have I think it was Dimple who spoke about that. In some families they having, no, was it you, Lara or Dimple? Forgotten. Where you spoke about families having to have discussions on someone who's been raped, and I think the one problem that we have is that we have this stigma, and the stigma is in the form of that we say that no, we cannot have disgrace in our family, so we need to discuss about this within the family and keep it as you know, try not to take it out there so that people will not see the flaws of our families. And another problem that we have is that even within the churches, we do find that problem where in the churches we say we do not want our church to be seen as a place where there's a lot of disgrace. We need to people need to see it as a perfect place, and that's where we are wrong. Families need to start talking about these things. Families need to actually get those same uncles that they are hiding just because they're breadwinners. We need to take them out. But now, in order to bring them out, some do suggest that the death penalty should be brought back. But for me, I kind of beg to differ in the sense of you cannot justify death through death. It doesn't bring justice. And it doesn't bring the sense of that. Look at how many men have raped girls, how many men have abused girls, how many men have murdered girls, and they speak about them at that moment and they don't speak about them again. But if we can have the mindset of the country saying, we're going to put it out there in that community where that person comes from, to say, so-and-so has done such a crime. So-and-so has raped a girl. So-and-so has killed. Name and shame that person. But after you name and shame them, let's leave it there, because my mind has got, there's a whole idea of mine that I feel like I cannot say because it's unbiblical as well, because I feel like it has to be more than that, But yeah, Noma.
Yeah, you saw my hand. Okay. So I think just to try, give an understanding as to why people want the death penalty back, I think it's just because of the agitation that the justice system has, failed women in terms of this. So that's where that frustration comes from. And yes, I agree with you that the death penalty should not, come back. We can't play, judge, executor, and, decide, who can live and who can't. But it's just a thing of the justice system has, failed. So
yes,
it needs to go further than just naming and shaming. There needs to be like actual, arrests that needs to be made public, that you can't do this, you will be held accountable, you will go to prison. Because I feel like there's a lack of that fear. Because, like people, they, withhold themselves from doing something that they want to do because they know that, okay, cool, if I eat this chocolate, my mom's going to hit me. If I do this, that will happen. But with rape or, with rapists, and they say, well, if I commit this crime, there's no, exact 110% guarantee that they will go to jail, because, it seldom happens.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that.
And you do see that there's some looking at the justice system as well. There is some, because my thing is, if they bring back the death penalty, there is some people who've not even committed the crime.
Yeah, wrongly convicted. Yeah.
And then they get convicted, and then they die for nothing, and then what? You're not gonna bring that life back, So I think rather we name them and shame them. Let's not leave it up to naming, for example, guys like there was a musician, artist, Briggs, who raped a girl, And all of a sudden, people talk about him, so now they know him as a rapist. Cool. But there's others who've done it, and we don't name them, we don't shame them. There's those videos that have come out where we've seen government officials themselves beating up their girlfriends or something like that, on camera. But till today, they're not in prison, they're not even arrested. Nothing has happened to them. They just get taken out of that portfolio and put in another portfolio. In churches, there's ministers who've done stuff where they've moved them from a certain city and taken them to another city. There's the example of that. There was that pastor who raped girls was it in Durban but somewhere in KZN, the Nigerian pastor. And till today, nothing has really happened. We even had the court case being shown on TV and stuff like that. And my thoughts are, yes, we can show the stuff on TV, but what are we doing about it? That's the question. What are we doing about it? Because these things need to start from the top. We need to start attacking these things from the top, irregardless on who that person is. We need to start attacking these things from the top, and then the people at the bottom will begin to understand that, this is a crime, this is wrong, it needs to be fixed, Dimple.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of how I should put this all around. But I think going back to the start of the conversation, where Nomalanga was talking about the protests, and how you, Elvis, said if we don't go with a demand, so to speak, then nothing will happen.
Yes.
So then perhaps that should be our demand. We want a better justice system, actual justice to take place,
Yes.
And I do remember, like, the court cases, they appear and then poof, out of nowhere they just disappear.
Yeah.
Then you never hear about them again. What happened? Did something change? Did that person actually get punished? How was the victim helped? So I don't want to say attacking, because attacking is very violent, but like demanding justice from the justice system, making them realize that actually it's very broken. It's terribly broken.
Yes.
And you can fix it. Nothing is beyond repair. You can fix it. And this is how you can start to fix it, by actually delivering justice where it is meant to be delivered, making sure that protocol is followed, and stuff like that. Small stuff like that. It starts from there. Just make sure that the system is in place and that it actually works, and that you actually follow through with everything. And don't just leave things in the dust, but actually follow through. Reflect back, did this work? And stuff like that. Yeah, that's just my thoughts for the moment.
Okay. TK.
I think in terms of this part of the conversation, one thing that we have lost, I think, as a country, is that when we obtained freedom in 1994, we left everything in the hands of the government and in the hands of the politicians. And we lost our sense of duty as citizens to fight for what we stand for and believe. And I think there needs to be a revolution that happens. Some sort of a revolution that happens. I do not know what You know, I was born. If I don't want to reveal my age, but I was born sort of after um, apartheid, and so I do not know what took the people at that time. What took them? What's the English word? What made them to go into the streets and fight? I don't know. What was their last resort? What happened? Was it? I don't know. But I think with GBV, I think we have come to a time where when you hear of a story of Serufato Pule who is pregnant and is being hanged on a tree and she gets killed, and you know, while she's pregnant, that must be a stop.
Yes.
You know, that must be something that leads to a revolution. Now there are two types of revolution that I believe that is the best way forward for us, and that worked for apartheid. We saw it working. Is that going to the streets work? Revolting on the streets work? No doubt about it. So we need to show those who are in power our anger. We need to go to the streets and say enough is enough. And the second part, which I think is more important, is that we need to be, as particular young people, we need to encourage an activism of legislature. You know, as we are sitting here today having this conversation, there needs to be someone with a legal mind listening to our thoughts, listening to what we are saying, and drafting down a legislative document that we can debate about in parliament and in all the other spheres of government. Because the reason why and using that case study when Elvis of Duduzi Manana who beat up his girlfriend and it was recorded, the reason why he got scot-free is because we do not have legislative rules or whatever legal term it is used on GBV. You know, what is the minimum sentence for rape? Nobody knows.
5 years.
What is a minimum sentence for assault? Nobody knows. But we do know what is a minimum sentence for premeditated murder, for murder, for homicide. We know those things. But when it comes to assault, we do not know. We do not know when it comes to rape. We do not know. It goes, a lenient judge will say 10 years, a more harsher judge will say 25 years to life. We do not know. So it's because we do not have legislative documents on the table. Parliament is saying they're outraged, they are angry, but they are not passing laws. That's the thing. So we need to go to the crux of the legal system, and the legal systems is being governed and shaped by legislature. That's simple as that. That's the most simplest of things that we could do at this particular moment. Elvis, write down a legislature, gather your constituency, fight on it, present it to NCOP, present it to Parliament, let it be passed. That's simple. But we're not doing it.
Okay. Norma's got the legal mind, so she will help us eventually. And another thing, I do agree with you, with us fighting with this thing in the streets. But my thing is, fighting about it, I believe when we fight, let us go to the right offices. Let us go to the right places where we can actually say, this is what we want. If it means going to Parliament, let us go. Let us march to Parliament there and say we need justice for these people. We need more justice for all these other people, and be there as men, especially, because my thing is, women have been fighting for so long, right? And we haven't listened to them. And it's up until it comes to your family that you will start saying, oh, wait, no, we need to protect women. And that's what I don't want. I don't want this to get to a point where it's affecting me. You know, it needs to affect me as a person. If I'm looking at my community, if I'm looking at just the country itself, it needs to start there. It needs to start from me saying, this can happen to my sister, this can happen to my mom, this can happen to my friend. Let me try and protect them before it happens to them. And out of what we're doing, we basically, or what we're doing might not, the change might not come now, right? And remember, from 94, we are less than 30 years independent, right? But if we look at the children of Israel as well, it took them 40 years to get to the promised land. And for us to see these things change, it's going to take us quite some time. But we need to start talking and start bringing that conversation now and start bringing up the same ideas as you say, TK, where we need to write a legislator and take it to the NCOP and take it to those higher offices. And what we need to do now is, for us as young leaders, we need to start speaking to the right people, speak to the lawyers, we speak to, and the nice thing is, why church and our churches, as a community, the church is full of different people from different works of life. So I think we need to start now talking to the right people and saying, oh, you're a lawyer, could you help me? I'm trying to write up a legislation for this and that. Can you help me with that? They can help us. And then we start changing that conversation from then and saying we need to bring this up, especially as young people, and start changing people's minds, people's mindset. And then they can see that, okay, we have actually a future for future leaders and for the future of our country. I don't know, does anyone else have final thoughts?
I think just like adding on to your thing, so what you're pretty much saying is, when we challenge ourselves, that's when change comes. So yeah, with challenge comes change. So I really like that, putting the problem onto ourselves and like taking ownership for it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Noma.
Nothing from my side.
Dimple.
Yeah, you guys have said it all.
TK.
All I can say is not yet uhuru. There's more fight to be fought. And as a man, I am guilty. And I need to work on myself and to work on those who come after me. That's all. Thank you, bro.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Really, this is actually something we need to just continue talking about and continue to look at ideas and how we can change. And we need to find solutions for this. And thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, we'll do another recording soon. We'll look into it. My apologies that my friend could not make it tonight, because she just thought she had to just think more about it. And yeah, let's try and fight the stigma. And let us remember one thing, is that this is not a white issue. This is not a black issue. No, this is an issue of something that's happening in our country. And our systems have failed us. Our family system has failed us. Our church system has failed us. You know, our government system has failed us. And it's up to us to change that system. And the only way we can change that system is if we continue being within that system. You know, let's be, I like to use this analogy, but it's not as a positive analogy, but at the same time, you can use it as a positive analogy, where I say, let us be like the cancer. You know, cancer does not attack a person from the outside. It attacks a person from within. So we need to be that cancer from within, but be the good cancer that can attack the systems of our communities, which is the church, which is the government, which is the schools. Let us get into that and change from within. And that way, we will win. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Amen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Elvis. Thank you, Elvis.
Thank you.